Good afternoon, everyone. Today, we'll be talking about media ownership and its different aspects. So, first, we'll look at what is media ownership. So, let's look at it. Media ownership refers to the control of commercial and legal aspects of media outlets by individual, corporation, or governments. It encompasses various aspects, like who control the media outlet, what type of control do they have, and is there concentration of media ownership? So let's talk about these three things first. S- One, like who controls the media outlet? This could be a single person, a family, a large corporation, or a non-profit organization, or even a state. What type of control do they have over it? Ownership can involve decision-making authority over content, hiring, and financial interests. Is there a concentration of ownership? When a few entities control a large share of media landscape, it raises concern about the diversity of viewpoints. So now let's talk about it in detail. So first we look at private ownership. What is private ownership? Most common form with media outlets own for profit companies. Now, what is public ownership? So, looking at it, we can talk about like media outlets owned and operated by the government often focus on public service and unbiased reporting. Now we'll talk about non-profit ownership. Media outlets run by non-profit organizations often focus on causes or communities. And let's also look at cooperative ownership. Ownership is shared by it is basically like when ownership of a media outlet is owned by a group of individuals such as journalists or community members. Now let's talk about it in more detail. So media ownership goes beyond simply who owns a news outlet. It's a complex web of structures, influences, and potential consequences for healthy democracy. So, like, we'll talk about structures of media ownership. There are different structures of media ownership. So, first, we'll talk about horizontal concentration. This because when one company owns a large share of outlets within the same media type, for example, we can say company X owns several newspapers. The limits this limits diversity of voices within that medium that the public wants to hear, and it basically means that public have no choice rather than listening to it. Now we'll talk about vertical concentration. Here, a company owns different parts of media production and distribution chain. Again, taking example like company Y owns a cable network, production studio, and several TV channels. This gives them immense control over content creation and dissemination. Now, talking about cross media ownership, one company owns outlet across different media types. Example, company Z owns a newspaper chain or a radio station group and a TV network. This creates the potential for a single viewpoint to dominate across all the platforms. And like it basically means that the audience and the viewers doesn't have any choices, or we can say like they don't have more options. Now we'll talk about impact of media ownership, like homogenization of content. When ownership is concentrated, there's a risk of similar content across outlets, catering to a lowest common denominator for the profit or a specific agenda. Reduced investigative journalism. Investigative journalism is expensive and time-consuming. Profit-driven ownership might prioritize these news over in-depth reporting, hindrance, and accountability. Limited access to diverse voices. Concentrated ownership can marginalize minority viewpoints and perspective, creating an information gap for certain segments of the population. Regulations and initiatives. Like there are major regulations and initiative taken by government and individuals. Like first, we'll talk about antitrust laws. These laws aims to prevent monopolies and encourage competition within the media industry. Ownership caps. Regulations might limit the number of outlets a single entity can own in a specific region or media type. Public service broadcasting. Many countries have state-funded broadcasts and mandated to provide unbiased news and educational content. Media literacy programs. Educating the public on media bias, ownership structure, and critical thinking skills helps them evaluate information more effectively. Now, understanding these complexities is crucial for a healthy democracy. A diverse and accountable media landscape ensures informed citizens, facilitates public discourses, and holds power accountable. By analyzing ownership structures, advocating for regulations, and promoting media literacy, we can work towards a media ecosystem that strengthens democratic processes. Like, we can also talk about media ownership in both legal and commercial manner. So, like, who owns the media outlet? Is it a single individual, family, large corporation, or so? What type of content do they have? Ownership often involves decision-making authority over various aspects of media outlet, including content, operation, and financial matters. Content basically refers to editorial decisions about what stories are covered, the angles they take, and prominence they receive. Operations, we can talk about hiring and firing decisions and technological infrastructure and budgetary allocations also. Financial matters, we can say strategies for generating revenue and managing profit. The degree of concentration, when a few entities control a large share of media landscape, it raises concern about diversity of viewpoints. Like, let's say, limited ownership can lead to homogenization of a content and a lack of representation over a diverse perspective. Media biases. Owners may have their own political or economic agenda that can influence in way news is presented among the audiences. Accountability. Concentrated ownership can make it harder to hold power institutions accountable if media outlets are less likely to engage in investigative journalism. There are different structures of media ownership, like horizontal concentration, vertical concentration, and cross media ownership. Horizontal concentration, one company owns a large share of outlets within the same media group. For example, a corporation owning multiple newspapers. Vertical concentration, a companies own different parts of media production and distribution chain. Again, taking example, we can say a company owning cable network, production studio, and TV channel. Cross media ownership, one company owns outlet across different types. Example, a company owning newspaper, radio station, and TV networks. So, like, uh, let me talk about it by showing some examples too. Like we see here, Media Ownership Monitor Report of 2020. We can see TV, radio, and print. Who owns which? Here we can take an example of TV, Sun TV. It is owned by Kavanthi Maran, senior, he's a senior DMK leader. So we can say that there is an influence of the party in this channel. Again, we take example of Z, which is owned by Subhash Chandra. He's again an MP and he's independent but supported by BJP. So here also we can see the influence of the new way it reports news and the way it supports BJP when they bring any bills or any laws, the way they defend BJP in every aspects. Now, again, we take example of same Asianet. It's owned by Rajiv Chandrasekhar. He is also BJP MP. Again, we see News Live, Orissa TV, all is owned by the BJP MPs. So we can see the influence of a ruling party in these channels. And taking the best example of All India Radio, which is owned by the Indian government. So here we can see the large chunk of news that we hear on All India Radio is basically dominant by Indian government. So there we don't get like options to listen anything against government. Again, if we talk about print media, we talk about Jagran. It is owned by Samajwadi Party, former MP of Samajwadi Party. So again, we'll see a biases against uh, the ruling party and in favor of Samajwadi Party. In this way, there are many more people like Sakal and Lokmat. Like Sakal is owned by a former NCP MP, and Lokmat is owned by Congress leaders like former Congress leaders like Vijay Darda and Rajendra Darda. So it is where we see like influence and of the parties over all these decision makings and everything, which will very much affect the way the news media functions and all. So again, if we take example, we have seen this already, like how much Adani Group holds over 64.7% of NDTV network, and it has its influence over it. And again, we take TV Today network, it is majorly like held by public, but after that, the largest share is held by Puri family. So these are the ways in which we can see how media ownership affects the way the news is shared among the public and the perception which is created among public with the help of these media outlets. Thank you.